How did this show give us so much and simultaneously not enough? Hey, it's Ali. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're finally doing The Last of Us. I am talking about The Last of Us. We're going to talk about my review of the show. We're going to talk about what I like, what I didn't like. We're going to talk about video game adaptations and also future predictions of the show. And honestly, what a journey we've been on. Like, honestly, if you have not watched The Last of Us TV show, how does it feel to be living under a rock? Like, I don't mean that to be mean, but like, honest to God, like when someone said out there that The Last of Us is the new Euphoria Sunday. And for people who didn't play the game, this is absolutely true. Because every Sunday you were put on an emotional roller coaster, off and on and off and on. Even me, who, played the game, watched somebody play the game, and other people who have played the game or watched somebody play the game and knows everything that happened still on that emotional roller coaster. I'm so glad I didn't watch, because I had the urge to watch somebody's playthrough of the game while the show was still coming out. I'm so glad I didn't, because I forgot a lot of what happened, because it's been the last time I watched somebody play The Last of Us, I watched my friend play it, was early March 2020, right when the pandemic started. I know, timely. So I'm glad I didn't rewatch it, because I forgot some of the plot points. So getting to relive those plot points again, it was an adventure. It was a time. So if you didn't watch the game or didn't play the game and you watched the show, I know you were going through it. I know you were going through it. I mean, we were all going through it, but I know you specifically were going through it. So let's go ahead and talk about it today. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, because I make videos like this all the time. And comment down below. I think last time I asked if you watched, you play the game or you're just watching the show on its own, what have you. I want to know your thoughts on the show. Leave it down below. Try not to do any spoilers. If you played the game, do not do any spoilers for the second game, okay? Or if you do, just put a big spoiler warning above your thing, because I do want to talk to y'all about this, and I will talk about my future predictions at the end of the video, so you don't have to worry about spoilers for the second game or possibly the second and third season until then. So let's jump into it. So I started this off the last time again about the casting and the acting, and that has to be the number one, aside from costuming and set design and stuff. The number one about this show, I think, has always been the casting and the acting. The casting and the acting have been so perfect. I don't think I need to go on and on and on about Pedro Pascal. We don't need to. The internet has literally exploded. I'm glad he's taking it like a champ, because some of y'all are weird. Some of y'all are very weird, but I'm glad he's taking it like a champ. Speaking of weirdos, Bella Ramsey is absolutely amazing in this role. At every single episode, they were like, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't know what y'all were expecting. Pedro Pascal doesn't really look like Joel. So Bella Ramsey doesn't have to look identical to Ellie, but y'all were still I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Mostly because I think it's because her face is very round, and Ellie has a very sharp chin, almost like an anime type chin in the game. She has a very oval with a point face, whereas Bella Ramsey has a more of a I guess a rounded rectangle type face. Honestly, her face is more like my face, just a little flatter. So I guess that's the reason why people were she doesn't look like Ellie, even though she does. As soon as she put on the clothes that Ellie was wearing, I was like, oh, that's Ellie. I don't know why y'all were having such a fucking hard time with that. It's so weird to me. Y'all are so weird for that. Hello. You have your story to tell? You want to tell them that they're weird? Tell them that they're weird. She says you're weird. Anyway. Yeah, it just didn't rub me the right way. And they were oh, I hope they cast out. People were hoping that Bella Ramsey gets recast in the second one. And we're not even talking about acting. They're not talking about her acting. They're not criticizing her acting, which was phenomenal. So you can't even do that, because her acting was literally amazing. You're talking about, I just don't like the way that she looks. I don't like this person who's supposed to be playing a teenager. Don't like the way that she looks. People did have some concerns because Ellie does get aged up. I mean, they all age, but Ellie specifically goes through she's 14, I think, at the start of the game, and then in the second game she is 19 or something, and so she clearly is taller, more broader, she has more muscle, etc., etc. And I'm Bella Ramsey can do the same thing. She can get buffer. Bella Ramsey, I think, is 19 right now. They can make her look 19. They didn't make her look 19 in the show because she was supposed to look 14, and she looked 14. Now she's gonna obviously they can't grow her height, but they can definitely make her like look broader. She can definitely put on some muscle. Like that's not hard to do, like in terms of acting, like, you know, getting into like the physique for the job. Like in terms of acting, that isn't really hard to do. So I don't know why, or like thinking that she's not gonna do it. I just want to see how long she's gonna stay up there. But like thinking that she's not gonna do it, or that they would just cast somebody. Anyway, thinking that are just gonna cast somebody else because she doesn't have muscle and she's not gonna look like in whatever, because they're supposed to start filming, apparently, like allegedly they're supposed to start filming this year, like sometime at the end of this year. So like she got the whole summer to get lean and cuisine, you know what I mean? So I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get the hate. It's really weird and concerning, considering the fact that she was supposed to be playing like a 14-year-old. Some of y'all are really weird. Really, really weird. But anyway, down to the thing that she was amazing at, including looking like Ellie. She got Ellie's mannerisms down. I'm gonna talk about the last episode in a second. But even before the last episode, the way that she spoke, like, actors, man. I like when I see shit like that, especially knowing how Ellie is supposed to act. Same with Joel, knowing how they are supposed to act, knowing their physical mannerisms. In fact, I would say Pedro Pascal even took it a step further with Joel's like silent mannerisms and the way that he is. Like, but we'll get to that in a second with the last episode. But with Bella Ramsey playing Ellie, like her mannerisms the entire time, especially in the last two episodes, were the rage in Ellie. That is like the one thing I would be concerned about for an actor playing Ellie, is can you channel the rage? Can you channel the inner goblin that is Ellie in the first game and the second game, obviously with a rage? But we've seen that now. We've seen that with the second to last episode. We saw that. Oh God, that second to last episode is my favorite part of the game, because I just really like the fight in that one. But oh my God, so good. It was so good. But yeah, letting Ellie like rage out in that, because that differs from the game, because Ellie doesn't really get to rage out like that, but like letting her rage out like that was it felt so good, so vindicated. Oh God, like they did a really good job at creeping me the fuck out. I'll give you that. Like whenever a villain does a really good job at creeping me out, making me feel uncomfortable, and he did a really good job with that. Like every time he spoke, I was like, like he did a really good acting. Because he did a really good job with that. She really just gonna stay up there. Okay. For the last episode, however, the last episode was really, really good. I want to talk about the last episode because I love the last episode, and I also have a lot of critiques about the last episode, so this will lead into my critiques. But for the last episode, with the acting, Ellie's acting in the last Bella Ramsey's acting in the last episode, especially after we're entering spoiler corner at this point. If you have not watched the last episode of The Last of Us, this is your spoiler for that. When Ellie is talking to Joel, after Joel takes her back to the little dam place area, I forgot the name of it, Jackson, when he takes her back to Jackson and they're walking up, the entire time she has this like, the entire episode, she's very like distant, which is exactly how she was in the game, like mentally distant. Like she's thinking about something else. She's not really paying attention. She's like kind of like, you know, got a lot on her mind. She good. And Bella Ramsey plays that so well, like the fidgeting with her hands, the like, yeah, okay, like not really paying attention. And then at the end, when she's talking to Joel and she's just like, promise me, and the staring, like, I don't know how you got, like, she sounded smack like Ellie in that moment. Like, I just, like, she really did. I don't know what is with British people and accents, but British people do accents so well. And she like got Ellie's, like the way Ellie sounds in that moment down to a science. Because at that point she sounded almost smack like Ellie. Like you could put it up frame for frame. And she's just like, promise me. And that part, like I was sitting there like it was gonna turn out any different than it does in the game. But I was really like, but and then she looks at him, and the way like the confliction that's going on in her face, and then she says like, okay, and then it ends the way the game ends and just cuts to black. Oh God, I love that so much. And of course we gotta talk about Joel, We gotta talk about Joel. Okay, so obviously Pedro Pascal he did such a good job. And he starts, wanting to be this father. He starts being really happy and upbeat. And so this mixed with Bella Ramsey, with Ellie's, like, her mood in that moment seems very, like, weird and wrong, right? It seems like almost their personalities have switched, where, like, now Ellie is the one who's, like, brooding and has a lot on her mind, and Joel is the one, like, making lighthearted jokes and, like, being optimistic. Like, Joel has finally been optimistic. Meanwhile, Ellie is realizing in this moment that, like, honestly, she probably realizes that she might have to die in order to make this cure, or if, like, something goes wrong and she's not able to do it or some shit like that. Like, she feels this, like, really heavy responsibility and feels like all her life has been leading up to this moment. Even before Joel makes his choice, she still feels that way, which I think is, like, really interesting for her character, and why it hurts even more when that choice is robbed from her one way or another, which I always have stood by. If given the choice, Ellie probably would have said yes. She definitely would have said yes. Had she then grown up to be where she is in the second game, would she have said yes? I don't think so. Which it makes you seem like, oh, okay, well, she's obviously a child in the first game. So now, like, she doesn't have the ability to really consent like that, because she doesn't have the knowledge. The only knowledge that she knows has come from Fedra, who lie, they lie. That's all they do is lie. Fedra, the Fireflies, who also lie. All they do is lie. And Joel, who also lies. So, like, at this point, she has, like, she has barely anybody that she can, like, who is giving her the truth and, like, letting her decide on her own. And it is very hard for her to decide on her own. And at this point, she's feeling like the whole world is on her shoulders. Like, she's the only one with a cure. She's the only one who could, like, or possibly even have a cure. That's also another thing too, is the whole point of Joel's choice is, like, you don't know if that was a cure. You don't know if them opening Ellie's brain was actually going to lead to a cure. You have no idea. So you may just kill this little girl, rob her of her childhood, rob her of her life, and for possibly a cure. And that's, like, the whole point of, like, the choice. And my TV just turned off. The whole point of the choice, and whether or not Joel should have made it in the discourse around that or whatever. Personally, realistically, statistically, no, he shouldn't have done what he did. But emotionally, could I have said I would have done the same? Let's be honest with ourselves here. Would I have killed everybody in the hospital? I don't know about that one. But, like, but that's the whole point, is that spoilers, never mind. We'll get to that at the end. We'll get that to the end. Yeah, that moment in the show, super duper cool. I love that instead of, like, this intense action scene, it's very quiet and steady, because that's how it is in the game. That point in the game, you basically have to stealth around. Like, I remember at that point, my friend Nalo, shout out to Nalo if he's watching this. Are you watching this? You better be. Anyway, when he was playing that game, I remember that night so clearly. So much traumatic shit happened. But one of the cool things that happened that night was that in 2013 he beat the game, and he was in the hospital section, and he was trying to figure out, like, what to do. He was trying to figure out where to go. He didn't have enough ammo, I think, in his gun, and so he could not just go in guns a-blazing. Like, you have to sneak through that part. The only thing that I think makes you overpowered in that section is if you can craft, like, these little bomb things, and they're, like, very overpowered bombs, but you have to have the crafting items in order to do that. He did not have the crafting items, so he actually, once we looked it up, he actually had to go back, like, I think to a previous save or whatever, go get some crafting items so that by the time he got to that point in the game, he would have enough crafting items to craft those bombs. Otherwise, you have to be super duper stealthy throughout that part, and it's the hardest part of the game. It's the hardest part of the game, and it's hard for a reason, and it's quiet. Like, there's music playing. I don't think there's music playing. But, like, it's the hardest part of the game. It's very quiet. It's very somber, and obviously you're playing a video game, so you may not realize the gravity of what you're doing in terms of killing all these people. And I feel like they showed that really well in this show, in showing the gravity of what Joel is doing, especially when you see a person that is, like, surrendering, and he's just like, no, which is funny because he still doesn't kill everybody in the hospital. Again, we'll get to that at the end when we talk about predictions for season 2. But yeah, that part just in the show was so... It was literally like the game. There was multiple times throughout the show, and I'll talk about this when I talk about my critiques, but there are multiple times throughout the show that, like, almost feels like a 1-for-1 shot of the game, which is really nice and something that I wish they would do more. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so obviously Pedro Pascal's acting in this super duper good. The plot, the costume designs. Oh, especially that part with the it literally like the part when he enters the surgical room, the surgery room. It looks like smacked like the game, like the blocking everything. You would think they had the game up on the screen while they were doing the blocking for this, because it just looks like shot for shot like the game. And of course, in the car when Joel is like ruminating on his decision and deciding what to tell Ellie and what not to tell Ellie, and you can see it in Pedro Pascal's face. Oh, acting. I want Emmys for all of them. Emmys for everything. Directing, acting, costume design, set design, all of it. All of it. They better get some Emmys for that. Anyway, let's talk about my critiques real quick. So, on the same vein of the last episode, it's funny, the last episode gets all my critiques and all of my praise. The last episode, to a lot of people, including myself, not that it seemed rushed so much, and of course, I forgot about the giraffe moment. The giraffe moment was so beautiful. But not that it seemed rushed. I would have loved that giraffe moment to be in an episode. Like, it almost needed an episode between episode 8 and 9, or is it 9 and 10? I forgot what the last episode was. But it almost needed an episode between then. And the question then becomes, like, what would they put there? And personally, for me, I would want more stuff that, like, from the gameplay. I personally, like a lot of people, really wanted more infected in this, and I hope that they show more infected in the next season. But in this season, I feel like we didn't show as much infected as we could have. Especially trying to be stealthy around infected, because a lot of the infected that we do get to see is just when there's a horde of infected coming for you, and there is a little bit of stealth, but it's not a whole lot. So it would have been cool to see that. I don't know how that would have fit, like, plot wise, because you can't just have them walking around a sewer for like 40 minutes talking about what, I don't know, like, you can't do that. So I don't know, that's like where the challenge comes in, because it's like I would have wanted another episode, and that episode, because for me, Joel and Ellie getting close happens during gameplay for me. After these big story beats, then you have these moments where Joel starts to open up to Ellie, like little by little by little. And by the time we get to the end, that's when Joel is fully opening up, saying like, oh, I'll teach you guitar, this, that, the third, and being like this really fatherly figure, and things are starting to look up before, you know, the hospital scene. So that for me is when that happens. And so it's kind of jarring to see, like, go from him pretty much being unresponsive, going from being cold in episode 7 to being unresponsive because he was sick and like dying the entirety of like episode 8, and then episode 9 him immediately being like, oh, I'm your father now. Like, and treating her as such. You know, there is obviously that moment in the game that is the turning point of the game where he's like, this is my child now, right? That obviously episode 8 is that turning point in the game as well. But also I just feel like, I don't know, there just could have been more of a showing of that, because there's still that gameplay moment where, especially in the gameplay, the reason why I personally feel like Joel in the gameplay has those moments that get him closer to Ellie, that then leads to the big narrative moments, the cutscenes, is because Ellie has to physically rely on Joel for a lot of things. She is still a child, she's still 14, and she doesn't know how to swim, which is why the sewers would have been a perfect episode, because Ellie has to physically rely on Joel, and then Joel has to take care of Ellie physically. And so because of that, it shows that, like, because of that proximity, because of him having to do that, and the emotional stuff that they've gone through, that's what like really brings them together, at least in my eyes. And so having that physical moment of like, oh, fighting off infected together, this, that, the third, I would have to go back and like rewatch. Maybe I'll do it while I'm editing this. Maybe I'll go back and like rewatch some gameplay to see like what happens, like, because I really don't know how you would turn that into a full episode, because what is the plot? What would be the plot of the episode? But I would have really liked to see that, and I feel like that's where more infected could have been, like stealthily trying to get around infected. Like maybe we could have had some more background about infected and the likelihood of a cure, and so that could solidify the kind of unknowingness of like a cure and how it could or could not be that possibility. But neither Joel or Ellie have that type of knowledge, so them talking about it would kind of just be speculation, which may not work, versus like someone like Marlene talking about it. Maybe we could have got some more Marlene backstory. I don't know. I don't know. So Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but that's my like one critique of the show, is that like the last episode was so jam-packed because you're missing a large chunk of the game that is just gameplay. And that gameplay is when you get physically closer to Ellie, and that's when their emotional connection really like gets like this. So I would have liked to see that, and that's why I think a lot of people's criticisms of the last episode feeling kind of rushed. It's because you have to pack the entire last part of the game into this last part, where I feel like we should have split it up into 2 episodes, but that would have been really hard to do. So yeah, that's really all my criticisms. I wish there was more infected, and I really hope there will be more infected in the next season. All signs point to yes, because like spoiler alert, Ellie goes out on her own, and it's like an Ellie journey, just in case you forgot that Ellie was the main character of the show and the games, because some of y'all forgot, because some of y'all were really like, I didn't even touch on the fucking homophobia some of y'all had this entire fucking time. Homophobia and racism, but mostly homophobia. This whole, oh, they're pushing gay stuff down her throat. Meanwhile, Ellie has always been gay in the games, and they're like, we didn't need a whole episode for Ellie's backstory. It's like, Ellie's the main character. Yes, we did. Yes, we did, babes. She's the main character. I think you forgot that. I think you forgot that. Ellie is the main character. So, I know it may seem like Joel is the main character, but like, Ellie can continue without Joel. Joel cannot continue without Ellie. That is the entire point. It's the entire point. So, the Joel is not the main character. He is definitely like the center. He's part of the center. And they are a dynamic duo, definitely, but he is not the main character. Ellie is. So yeah, that's all my criticisms, really. That's really all my criticisms. I just wish there was, it's funny that we got not enough because I wanted more, but we got so much. Like they did so well. Moving on to like talking about video game adaptations, and like, y'all know how video game adaptation, I've made a couple videos about video game adaptations. I'm here every time a video game adaptation comes out. I don't have time to actually play video games in my life right now, so instead I just watch every video game adaptation that comes out, most video game adaptations that come out, and so I've been talking about those, because if you don't know, I'm a game designer. But I haven't been able to play a game in like so long. I'm hoping that I can play a game today. It's been rough. But anyway, video game adaptations have definitely been hit or misses, and this one is definitely a hit. It is definitely a hit. We can be critical of things and still call it a hit. I think it is headed in the right direction. I am cautious for season 2 and season 3. They're going to take the second game and split it up into 2 seasons, I think. Or they just said multiple seasons. So at least 2 more seasons, if not more. So I'm cautious because there's a lot. Part 2 of The Last of Us, the second game, was a very divisive game for a lot of reasons that we will get to in the predictions for the next season. But overall, there are some things that I wish would have been changed in the game that can be changed in the show. Like, there is a way to change my one big criticism of the game in the show. And it's just a timing issue. Like, there's like, when a certain event happens, I think needs to be pushed back. A certain event happens at the beginning of part 2, and I feel like we could push that back. And because we are doing this in a show format, you can make that happen whenever. You can change around the timeline of things just a little bit, or mess around with when things happen or when things get shown to the audience, because you get to mess with the timeline. So I think that is fixable. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, video game adaptations. I lost my train of thought for a second. That was a tangent. Video game adaptation has been a hit or miss. This one is very much a hit. It's kind of easy though. This one is really hard to mess up because it's a narrative driven game. You're going to point A to point B the entire time, and there's gameplay elements like strewn about, but it is basically almost like playing a movie. A lot of people said when this game came out and were praising the game that it is like a movie that you play. A lot of people were saying that. The gameplay is really good in the game. I'm not saying that there is no gameplay like at all, but a lot of the game is like, when you're watching cutscenes, it's like watching a movie, pretty much. So trying to take that and translate it to a show was pretty easy to do. Like, in terms of like having the blueprint already there for you. Like, there's a lot that you can do and change, but you don't have to change all that much. And I'm happy for the most part with a lot of things they did change for the sake of the show and making it a show that you watch instead of a game that you play. So I really like that. As for other game adaptations going forward, I hope that this just inspires more people to like look at these games as more than just, I don't even know. Because I saw a tweet. The reason why I'm saying this is because I saw a tweet. And someone, it was a pretty viral tweet. It was a tweet that was a screenshot of a TikTok that was like, why didn't y'all tell me that games are good and have good story and good narrative telling? I hate to be that bitch, but I really looked at that tweet like, are you fucking joking? Are you fucking, like, do you think the only games that exist are like Fortnite? And the answer is yeah. I realized that like games outside of people, like the gamer lexicon or like whatever the fuck, people really, like normal people, I shouldn't say normal people, but like people who don't play video games or know anything about video games or don't like video games literally think that the only video games that exist out there are NBA 2K, Minecraft, and like Fortnite, like I said, because that's what like children are playing and that's their only exposure to video games, let alone like indie games, let alone like narrative driven like AAA titles, let alone narrative driven indie games or anything like that. Like they're or I forgot party games too. They probably know about party games like Mario Kart and Mario Party, and that's it. And that's really crazy to me. That's really crazy to me. That's like saying that like, oh yeah, I know about sports and the only sport you know is football. Like like I may not be into sports, but I can name a couple of sports off the top of my head. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just so weird to me that like there's a good portion of people out there who when they think of video games, they think of like just Call of Duty, Fortnite, and that's like it. Like that's really crazy to me. Like really, really crazy to me. So I really saw that tweet. I was looking at it like, okay. So yeah, I hope that in the future we're talking about video game adaptations. Like yeah, I do hope that this kind of not only gets people to think of video games. First of all, video games is an art form. I think pretty much almost everything that you make is an art form, but that's another conversation for another day. But this was one of those games that came out, The Last of Us, that people were being like, see, video games are art. And that is definitely, yeah, that's definitely one of the games people would point to and be like, video games are art. I think all video games are art, whether they're just like games that are just shoot ups like Fortnite or narrative driven, story driven like games like The Last of Us or whatever. Like I think all games are art to an extent. Some are more artsy than others, but like anyway, I'm getting off track. That's a different conversation. But my point is, I'm trying to say is that I don't know. I'm glad that people see that and want to get into video games. Like, I'm not going to gatekeep video games. That's just a wild statement to fucking make. Like, it's just a wild statement to make. A wild statement. But I'm not going to gatekeep video games. If this is the thing that gets you into playing video games, cool. Like, get into video games. Video games are fucking fun. But also at the same time, I'm hoping that this also inspires people who want to make video game adaptations, like in Hollywood or whatever, to really think past just, oh, we need to slap a random plot on this and put the Halo skin on top, which pretty much what like is happening with a lot of these like adaptations that flop, is they're not actually trying to tell a story that would fit into the universe like the way Cyberpunk did, or the way even the Cuphead show did. The Cuphead show pretty much comes up with its own plot, like episode to episode plot, and yet it fits so well within the universe that you don't really question it. Like those there's not much of a plot in the Cuphead game other than like the devil has the dice souls and they need to go get it back. There's not much of a plot after that. So to have a like show that is so episodic that you need a plot from episode to episode is very like hard to do. But like they were able to do it because you actually care about like the story and you actually care about these characters and the story that you're telling. And same with Sonic as well. Like OG Sonic, other than beating Eggman, there's not really a story there. So you can put a story there, but you have to care about the story in order for it to fit within that universe. You have to care about what the story is and how it relates to that universe. You can't just make up your own story and then slap a skin on it and be like, this is Resident Evil. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like I hope that inspires watching The Last of Us. I hope whoever's out there making, you know, these adaptations are inspired to actually make a good story out of it and not just slap a skin on it and be like, here's my script that I've been wanting and I could never get to turn into an actual show. Here's that script. Slap a game like label on it or slap a nostalgia label on it, because that's really what's been happening, not just in the games industry or not, well, yeah, in the games industry, the music industry, the television industry, all of it, movie industry, all of it. It's just, anyway, I'm getting off topic now, but yeah. All right, so lastly, spoiler corner, spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about my predictions for the second and possibly the third season. And I'm going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 2 to talk about my predictions because I've seen the game. I watched Nalo play it over quarantine. What a time to be alive. Anyway, so this is your warning for that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so Abby, obviously Abby. If you don't care about spoilers, Abby is, you know, the doctor, the surgeon that Joel killed? Yeah, Abby is his daughter. is that surgeon's daughter. And Abby, there was always the speculation if Abby was in the room in the game. In the show, Abby's actor who was going to be playing Abby in the next season was in the room. Abby's voice actor from the game was in the room. She makes a cameo there. Is that supposed to be her? Who knows? It might have just been a cameo, but that's kind of the whole point. Joel leaves those two nurses alive, or a surgeon, whoever they were. He leaves them alive, and that is his mistake. People talk about that a lot, that he was not leaving mercy for anybody in that building except for those two women, and that was his mistake, funnily enough, because those two women then go back and be like, Joel is the one who killed your father, and then Abby is the one who kills Joel in the end. And the whole point of the second game that no one seems to understand, or at least the people who don't like the game or don't like Abby or this, that, the third, because Abby killed Joel. God, they were sending death threats to Laura Bailey, who is the voice actor of Abby. If you've seen online the tweets that are like, oh, we need to protect whoever's going to play Abby at all costs, that's why. She was getting death threats from a character that she played that she had no... You know who wasn't getting death threats? Well, I mean, they probably were. I was gonna be like, the creators of the game. They probably were getting death threats, but not nearly as much death threats as Laura Bailey was about playing Abby. She has no say in that, but she still got death threats like she was Abby herself and killed Joel herself. People are insane. And now that Pedro Pascal is in the mix and he's going to die, oh lordy, that's why people are like, I hope she doesn't have social media. I hope that the press gives her coverage. I hope that all of the actors, the directors, and everybody understand what the fuck is going to happen, because that will happen. Prove me wrong, please. I want to be proven wrong, but I know that it will happen. So please, dear God, like, put out a statement, just the same way Star Wars did, but fuck Star Wars. Anyway, put out a statement. I shouldn't say fuck Star Wars out of context. I love Star Wars so much, but there's so much I hate about Star Wars too. But anyway, please put out a statement saying, hey, don't send fucking hate to this person. They're a person playing a fucking character, you fucking weirdos. Go outside and touch grass. Anyway, back to the fucking plot. So the whole point of the game that a lot of people seem to miss, especially the people who send death threats to Laura Bailey, is that the second game is about the cycle of violence. And it is about how the cycle of violence is going to continue and continue until someone stops. And that is seen through, obviously, Abby avenging her father, and then Ellie avenging her father, or trying to, the whole game. You're literally going through the whole game. You're killing all of Abby's friends and all of this stuff. She kills a pregnant woman. Like, it gets crazy. It gets crazy. And Ellie is just on this rampage full of rage, and Abby's killing some of Ellie's friends, and it just goes back and forth until the end. Ellie makes friends with this person who I forgot. They were a part of a cult, I think, and Abby saves them from the cult or some, I don't actually remember how that goes in the game. And this person is with them. And so basically what literally is about to happen is that Abby and Ellie are fighting right at the end. And they're fighting. And if Abby kills Ellie, old boy, I do not remember their name, it will come back and kill Abby, and the cycle will just continue, because at this point Ellie and that person are like this. They're like this. Ellie has like taken over the parental role of this person the same way Joel took over the parental role for Ellie. And so it's just this cycle. And that's the whole point. And spoiler for the end of the game, if you don't want the end of the game spoiled, Ellie does not kill Abby. She lets her run off, and they both just agree to go their fucking separate ways. And Ellie fucks off in the fucking cabin somewhere and has a child. Well, she doesn't have a child. Her girlfriend has a child. Long story. But yeah, and that's when she's just like, you just have to stop. You just, at some point, you need to stop. And that's this. So that is basically how that goes. And that is what hopefully this next season is going to be about. Well, this first season was about love. The second season is about the cycle of violence. And so I hope that is what that is about. In terms of Joel dying, my one critique of the game was that Joel died way too early. There was no build up for it, and therefore it was very hard to have sympathy for Abby throughout the entire game. Like, obviously on a basic human level, I can have sympathy for Abby and understand why she did what she did. However, I thought it would have been more impactful if you do the whole switching between Ellie and Abby, because that's also the other thing too. You have to play as Abby in the game. That's also another reason why the game got so much hate. The character got so much hate. You have to play as Abby throughout the game. And so I thought it would have been more impactful if you play as Abby, right? You're going through the game, and then at the climax of the game, you kill Joel. And then that's when, like, everything's like, whoa! know, obviously killing Joel is like the inciting incident for things to happen, so it's a little hard to switch that. But it would have been cool to have that happen maybe a little bit later in the game, and so that build up is there, and that like, oh, I like this Abby girl, whoever she is, maybe she's one of Ellie's friends or like something like that, and not really reveal who she is until then. It doesn't even have to be like the climax of the game. It could be like partway through the first part of the game or something like that. I don't know, but just having it happen as like the inciting incident really was like took all the punch out, you know what I mean? And from there it was just depressing. I mean, that's the whole point, but like still, every time we played as Ellie, it just was so sad and depressing over and over and over again. But yeah, I liked the second game. I know a lot of people are very divisive on it. I don't care. I liked it. I understood the point of it and the cycle of violence and this, that, the third. It's very bittersweet. A lot happened on the day my friend was playing that game too. Damn. Anyway, yeah, that's it. That's all I got for that. I'm hoping that with these 2 seasons, Joel will actually die at the end of the second season, and then the third season will just be Ellie going on this rampage, because that would be a nice like little setup, because Ellie and Joel are at odds throughout the beginning of the game, and Ellie actually doesn't really get to apologize to Joel or vice versa, and then Joel dies, and so that's very like, it was sad. It was sad as hell. Let me tell you. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you liked about The Last of Us. If you liked the show, if you didn't like the show, you got criticisms for the show, will you be watching the second season? I will be seated. I will definitely be seated. So yeah, let me know. If there's any video games that you think deserve a good adaptation, story based or not, let me know also in the comments below, because I got a couple of rooting around in my head too. But anyway, maybe I'll make a video about it one day. All my social medias are also down below. You can reach me on anywhere. Let's start our conversation, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.